This is 69 the podcast. I'm Dave Haynes. 69 has been covering the digital signage industry since the dawn of man, first online and now as a podcast. The goal on here is to make listeners aware of interesting companies, smart people, and new technology developments, all of them meaningful in making digital signage projects happen. I try to help listeners understand sometimes complicated subjects and why they should care. The podcasts are free and I try to get a new one out weekly, but things happen now and then. The 69 podcast has been gratefully sponsored and supported since the start by Jeremy Gavin and the fine folks at ScreenFeed, the digital signage content store. ScreenFeed makes beautiful looking, totally automated content for signage and digital out-of-home networks. Check them out at screenfeed.com. 69 has been around since 2006, and the publication and podcast are now owned by Spectrio, which provides customer engagement solutions for business. You can find them at spectrio.com. Montreal's SACO Technologies doesn't have anywhere near the mindshare of the largest LED display manufacturers in Pro AV, but it's nonetheless the supplier behind some of the biggest and most interesting display jobs lighting up these days. That's SACO's LED light sticks cladding the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, and turning it into a colossal media display that can do everything from mood lighting and still images to motion ads for movies, like a spot for Batman. While the other major players in direct view LED displays work with Pro AV consultants and integrators and media owners, SACO engages with architects and building engineers to fully integrate active, addressable LED lighting into the facades of buildings, and in some cases the overall structure of the building. For example, the home grounds of the new MLS team in Cincinnati designed active, changeable lighting into the entire stadium exterior, as opposed to just bolting a big conventional LED onto the side. That's an active LED on the top of SoFi Stadium in LED, where the Super Bowl was just held, done by SACO as well. The backstory of SACO is super interesting and really different. The company's roots are in supplying the blinking LED indicator lights you'd see in old school control rooms, like the walls in power plants. Back in the mid-90s, one of SACO's founders wondered if the colored LEDs could be put together and controlled to create a video display. A small reference design proved the concept, and within a couple of years, SACO was providing a massive version as a digital backdrop for U2's Pop Mart tour. That led to more concert tours by more bands, and by the mid-2000s the company was also a major player for large format stadium and arena displays. These days, much of SACO's work is custom and specialized, and not the kind of work suited to the more mainstream high-volume LED guys out there. I had a really interesting chat about SACO with Co-CEO Jonathan Labbee. Jonathan, thank you for joining me. Can you describe what SACO's company does and how long you've been at it, or how long the company's been at it?
Yeah, hi, thanks. Yes, absolutely. SACO's been around. Actually, the company was founded in 1987 by the Jalbou brothers, Fred and Bassam Jalbou, and originally started off as a company that specialized in nuclear control room equipment.
Whoa.
So SACO actually stands for Systems Automation Control, a very far cry from what we're doing today.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, if you've ever watched like a Steven Seagal movie and you see these big control room panels and these oil rigs and all that kind of stuff, that's the type of stuff that SACO used to do.
Okay.
And in those panels are a lot of little tiny blinking indicator lights and some other control equipment that SACO used to manufacture. And eventually they started experimenting with LED technology. And one of the brothers, Bassam, came up with the idea of creating a display using these solid state lights. At the time was only red and green, and eventually was working with a company called Nichia, which is one of the premier LED manufacturers still to this day. Mm-hmm. And when they invented the blue LED, they provided that to the team back in Montreal, and essentially we created the very first LED video display.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the idea when we first did it was a small little sample. It was like maybe like a 1 foot by 2 foot sample. It was quite small, but it was able to demonstrate the capabilities of putting up an image and eventually a moving image. And this caught the eye of certain advertising companies, and more importantly, at the time, a rock band. And we got a challenge from the band U2 to create this 50 foot by 150 foot wide video stage, I guess. Mm-hmm. Backdrop to replace the Sony Jumbotron, actually, that they were planning on putting on Pop Mart. Mm-hmm. And we took up the challenge and designed and built this thing and deployed it with success on the PodMart tour, started in Las Vegas, and then we toured with U2, essentially showing off these new capabilities. This was in 1997.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that first reference design that you talked about, when was that? Like 97 or a little bit before then, obviously?
The reference design was in '93. That's when the blue LED was
Okay.
invented. We had at that time already created a red-green display that, again, as a prototype. But then eventually we did build a red, green, and blue version, so an RGB version, a full color version,
Hmm.
and I think we met the band, and I think it was like maybe like in the end of 1994.
That's quite a transition from doing
Yeah.
control rooms to working with Bono.
Well, it completely changed the company.
Hmm.
At the time, we called the technology Smart Vision. We did that tour with success and then picked up a bunch of other bands and then eventually started doing permanent installations like the Baltimore Ravens Stadium and the MCI Washington Arena and so on and so on. And then that kind of, if we fast forward a little bit, we end up in 1999 and we built the very first NASDAQ screen in Times Square.
Okay, so the sort of curved one with the knockouts for all the windows,
Yep.
that's you guys.
That's us, and that's actually a really interesting story. That was supposed to be like already making a curve was going to be a big deal.
Hmm.
No one had ever seen a curved video screen of that magnitude. And then we had gotten the project. It was a full display at the time.
Hmm.
And then the client NASDAQ came to us and told us that the main tenant in the building was no longer accepting to have their windows covered. So we created these knockouts, and everybody was worried about how this would be, how this was look, but or how it would look. I guess it would look odd with these holes in it.
Hmm.
But with a little bit of convincing, everybody kind of went with it. And the very first piece of content that we put on there for testing was Pac-Man.
Ah,
Yeah,
which makes sense because it would work around the holes.
yeah, exactly.
Interesting. The so you started out kind of sort of doing well, I guess like almost like mesh LED curtains, and then you went with the NASDAQ display. It was sort of quasi conventional LED
Mhm.
cabinets, although albeit a little bit curved and all that. Uh, and in the past, let's say 5 to 7 years, really, all these other LED companies have come on the market with their own cabinets and all that. And you guys you haven't really sort of stayed in the conventional LED cabinet business. You've gone in other directions, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we still have some. I'm doing air quotes here, but standard type products.
Hmm.
Although although they're really more there to support some of the iconic projects that we're doing and some of the more complex projects that we're doing.
Hmm.
So, for example, if we have a client that wants to do the kind of this nighttime identity thing on their building, that highlights the architecture and so on, like some of the projects like Burge or FC Cincinnati.
Hmm.
In some cases, they may require some video screens down at the bottom on the marquee or inside and stuff like that. And so we do have offerings to be able to support them with it.
So is a lot of what you do custom then?
Yeah, I would say that most of what we're doing today is highly customized. Not full custom, but highly customized, and there's a difference there. In the sense that our product is really the technology itself, and then how we package it is the customized portion of it for the client.
Right. And a lot of the reason that you get attention, I gather at least, is that unlike the vast majority of the companies who are selling quote unquote conventional LED products, they're working with AV integrators, whereas you guys, by the looks of it at least, tend to work with architects.
Yep, that's a very good observation. So our main drive is really with architects. We have 7 architects on staff here at SACO.
Ah, okay.
We have mechanical engineers, of course, electronics engineers, but also structural engineers. So when we go into a project, and usually the earlier the better, because we're able to detail down to the level of the building,
Hmm.
and at the same time we're able to influence how things get integrated because we know how we can make things. We're able to work with the architects to integrate to integrate the product in the building facade or wherever it's supposed to go, where it looks integrated and not bolted on. And
Right.
and that subtle difference makes all the difference in the world.
It also makes a difference in terms of the engineering, right? Because even though the individual light rods probably aren't all that heavy, if you have thousands of them, it adds weight to a building, right?
Well, it does, and so if we were to come on, say, after a building's already up, we would normally be adding not just the product, but we would be adding like the bracketing and the extrusions
Right.
and whatever else that we're doing. If we're there early enough in the early stages, maybe the extrusion for the window mullion will be designed differently to accommodate the product. So there's some savings in terms of weight and potential cost, but also the final look is very different.
Mm-hmm. Uh, Going back in the past decade or so, you started to see buildings, uh, signature buildings in a landscape that would be lit at night for different purposes. They might have a certain kind of baseline set of colors that they use, but if, like right now, there would be buildings that are in blue and yellow because of the situation in Ukraine. Uh,
Yes.
has that is, that seemed to be the way things were being done for quite some time now. But if I and we'll get into this with the Burj in Dubai,
Yes.
that's more than just sort of ambient lighting. It's a media facade. What was there a moment when it changed and you're able to do that, or has that always been possible and it just hadn't been done?
We've always been able to do that. I think that the like the market and the clients, as they evolve and they see things and they have ideas, and then we start exploring ideas with the clients. Then I think that that's truly when things get revealed, right? So we may have the capability to do something, but then you also need to get the client that has a vision that allows that to happen.
Okay. So with the Burj, world's tallest building, at least I think it still is, right?
I
There's
believe
always
so. Yes.
some going up.
Yeah.
But with that one, you've got your product on at least one side of the building. Is it just on the one side, kind of facing the
It is.
Dubai
Yes.
Mall and all that?
Yes.
And that goes from top to bottom. Was it built in, or was it added after the fact?
Right. So this was added after the fact,
Okay.
and actually, what happened there is that the client had tried something. They had acquired some product from I don't know exactly where, and had put it up. So they had this idea of wanting to do this. I believe it was a DMX-based system. It did what it was supposed to do, but the problem is that I don't believe that it lasted as long as it needed to. So like a year and a half in or something, we connected with them, and then we designed for them this system that would fully integrate with the fin. And then they have these really beautiful stainless steel fins on the building. That's what gives it like that shine during the day.
Okay.
So we wanted to respect that, but that was also the perfect area to attach these things. So we designed this kind of like the fin, like a nose piece for the fin that integrated the product, all the cabling and everything. And then we installed that at the end of 2017.
Okay. So with that building, as huge as it is, you can actually do a full motion ad like the recent one for the new Batman movie from street level all the way to the top, right?
Oh, absolutely. Everything that we do is basically it's either a full video screen or a deconstructed video screen. And in the case of Burj Khalifa, it is what we would refer to as a deconstructed video screen. So it has a 25 millimeter pixel pitch on the length, right? So on the
Hmm.
height, but then a meter and a half on the width. So it goes in between the windows. And obviously with distance and so on, your brain's able to put the image together.
Right. It's interesting. We in the past 4 or 5 years with LED marketing, it's all been about fine pixel pitch, and it's 0. 0.9 versus 1.2, and oh my God,
Hmm
1.2 is awful by comparison, and you're talking about a meter and a half pixel pitch.
Yeah, well, everything has to do with distance and contrast. At the end of
Hmm.
the day, it can be broken down as that. It's distance and contrast.
So what's involved in putting up something like that? I mean, God knows I wouldn't want to be the one of the technicians told to go up to the 110th floor and go outside and put this on?
Well, listen, it's a really interesting process, and much like other projects that we've done, it was the first time that we were doing something like this, and like
Mhm.
this, I mean, at that height with no cranes and difficult access and so on. I mean, the building itself is almost a kilometer tall. Everything is done with rope access people, and then the other complexity that comes into play is time. So between when we got the contract and we turned the screen on, it was 7 months.
Hmm. Wow.
So that's not a lot of time to design a new product. We actually had to design a new product for this project, do all of the engineering, the testing, validation, certifications. So essentially, what we did is we had our factory in Montreal. We design and manufacture everything in Montreal, by the way. And then we replicated our factory, or a portion of our factory, in Dubai.
Hmm.
And we did a lot of final assembly and uh, you know installation within the extrusion pieces and so on, and the cabling. Everything we did it there in Dubai. The client was very was instrumental in kind of helping us set up all of that capability there. And then we just staged everything everywhere that we could in every empty space of the building, and then started deploying this via rope access teams. And obviously, part of it is a hotel, part of it is our residences. So you're very limited in the amount of time that you can spend. So during the day, you can't be in front of at night, you can't be in front of the hotel portion.
Hmm.
During the day, you can't be in front of the residences. So we needed to plan across the whole building how to get these things in place.
And is it set up in such a way that if you're in one of these residences, you don't see the light emitting from these fins that it's just pointing out?
Correct. So you have no idea. You have no idea if you're inside the residence that there's actually lighting on the building.
Which is a problem for some of the media facades I've seen that are just mesh LED, because you're now looking through this grid system to see
Hmm.
outside. You still got your view, but it's compromised.
Yeah, exactly, and that's actually one of the reasons why the horizontal pixel pitch had to remain at 1.5 meters, was because we didn't want, nor the client didn't want to have anything in front of the windows.
Hmm. These media facades on buildings seem to be a thing. You're certainly in China, but I'm starting to wonder when we'll start to see more of them in North America. Are you seeing the demand there to do this?
Uh, yes, absolutely. Although things have shifted, I think that with the introduction of Burj, of FC Cincinnati, also let's say for SoFi Stadium on the roof, I think clients and architects are realizing that a media facade doesn't need to be just a rectangular or square video screen
Hmm.
that takes up all the front real estate. They're starting to look at it more as a way to enhance the architecture that can also do media,
Right.
right? And with the and with being able to prove that pixel pitch, you don't have to have the same pixel pitch on the vertical and the horizontal. You can do different things, and it just makes it more unique and interesting to the building, while you're still communicating the message that you want to from the advertiser or from whatever you're trying to communicate.
Is it your control system as well for the software that's driving it?
Right. So we do everything up to the video processor. So the
Okay.
video processor, what takes a signal in, and then we work with a variety of companies such as Disguise or Seven Sense, depending on the type of project that we're doing. But anything that has a very complex geometry, we usually work with Disguise.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get a setting out of the box for a kilometer
No,
tall building.
no, exactly. So all the mapping. However, our team does produce all of the 3D coordinates for the software to understand it. So you don't have to have a human sitting there kind of trying to figure out the math.
Hmm.
Because we already have the math, we've created a tool set that allows us to take all that math and turn it into coordinates for the systems that we work with.
Hmm.
So mapping a building is actually fairly simple. And if you were to change something or you had to adjust something in your final drawing sets, you can just re-upload that file to the server, and the server will change the pathways, I guess, for the video image.
Hmm. Now, when you're working with a giant scale surface like that, uh, it, because the pixels are 1.5 meters apart,
Mhm.
at least in that job, does that limit the amount of light that's coming out? Like one of the things I wonder about with city bylaws and all that is if you tried to do something like this on a building in New York or Montreal,
Mhm.
what would be the citizen reaction? Would they say we can't tolerate this? It's going to blind us. We're going to our living room's always going to be bathed in it's just going to feel like a tanning salon in our house.
Yeah, actually, very valid. We went through that exercise with just recently with a client,
Hmm.
and that really becomes more about kind of kind of being responsible, a responsible corporate citizen, I should say, and that onus falls onto the client, but also on us to provide the tool set to the client for that. So, but again, if you remember what I was talking about contrast earlier, if something's too bright, anyways, I'm sure you've driven down the highway and seen one of the digital signs where the
For
brightness wasn't turned down at night, and it kind
yeah.
of hurts your eyes. So I bet you don't remember the ad that was on that screen
Hmm.
because your brain was too busy hurting.
Hmm.
So in any case, to be able to show off the very best of that building and of what you're trying to show, you have to have the right level of contrast. So if it's very bright outside, obviously, and it could be just light pollution, then you'd want to kind of pump up the power. But if it's, if you don't have a lot of competing light, you would want to kind of drop the power down and the brightness. So we can do it a few ways. Obviously, we can set levels based on time of day and with light sensors and so on, which we do for several clients. Or there's just bypass where the client can select it. Or at night, it's just that level.
Right. With the Burj is a special case, but if there were other tall buildings in major cities that wanted to do this sort of thing, would they be looking to do it as a media model, or do they see it as a way to distinguish their building with ambient lighting that's interesting to look at?
Yeah, that really depends of the client.
Okay.
I think that some clients go in with the idea of wanting to create a media building. So if you look at the Hard Rock Hotel, for example, like the Qatar Hotel in Hollywood, Florida,
Hmm.
their intent was clear of what they wanted to do. It is a media based building, and that was the focus from the very beginning. Some of our other clients, I'm thinking of one of the embassies that we did in New York, for example, originally started off as a way to highlight the building. So there was more kind of like a highlight on the edge of the building.
Hmm.
But when they saw us testing, they realized, wow, I think there's more capability here. And I think that each client goes through a level of evolution on how to utilize the product.
And I guess there's a delicate balance that they have to reach as well. That they, like you were saying earlier, you can be good corporate citizens
Mhm.
and do something visually interesting with your building, but then you can cross the line and start selling mortgage broker services.
Well, you could do that, or you could strobe, and there's a lot of things that you could do that you wouldn't necessarily want to do. And some
Hmm.
of the clients, obviously you have some very sophisticated clients that have a media strategy for that, and they have a team. But some of the other clients just want to do something beautiful. And when that happens, I mean, we have a division inside of SACO called Media Collective,
Right.
with a creative director and so on. And we usually put together a base package for them, just to be able to kind of understand how to utilize their building.
Is the media collective in-house designers, or is it a collective of people who have the skill sets and experience to work with your technology?
Right. So we have some animators inside,
Hmm.
but the whole reason of the reason of Media Collective is really to build a collective of external firms that we work with, because we actually get a lot of work through design firms. Um, so we don't want to end up competing with them. So if we do end up having a project that requires some content, Burj was a perfect example. In the beginning, we built a bunch of content for them. So we kind of directed the whole thing, but we had, I think, was 6 firms that worked with us, to provide different flavors.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Gavin, CEO of ScreenFeed. Now, I'm not put off by the fact that you're not listening to this podcast to hear me. Just like audiences to any digital signage, you give your attention to content you find interesting or helpful. That's where my company ScreenFeed comes in. Our sole mission is to make your digital signage network more valuable by making content that is more valuable to your audience. If you'd like to drive more attention to your screens, visit screenfeed.com to explore the 75 plus content options we've created to do just that. And then give us a call. Now, back to the podcast.
So when you have a specialized project, somebody like another Montreal company, Moment Factory, might come to you guys and say, hey, we need to do something in this monumental service. Can you help us?
Yeah, correct. Actually, Moment Factory has several projects where we've collaborated together. One of them being the AT&T project in Texas, where we have our product inside of the kind of this egg-looking thing.
Right. Yeah, that kind of a spherical walkway thing that kind of leads you to the building.
Yep.
That's a very cool project, that overall thing.
Oh, it is beautiful.
So when you are working with these different companies, are they coming to you directly, or does it tend to come through an architect?
No, when we're working with with design firms, they'll usually either contact us, or again, vice versa. If we have a media request, we'll contact them.
Mm-hmm. There are any number, I would imagine, of companies out there that have LED light sticks that can do kind of mood lighting for a building. Do you compete with them, or are their control systems really meant to like change this block to blue and change this block to yellow so we can have the Ukraine flag?
Yeah. So I mean, I would say that in certain times we'll see them on projects, but those companies are usually DMX based, whereas we're video based, and there's a really big difference there in the overall approach, and also in the ability to display color and bit rate and stuff like that. So just coming from a video background, the type of clients that usually seek us out, or that we seek out, have a vision for media, not just for lighting.
Right. Do they also come to you because of scale, that you've done these ginormous projects?
Absolutely. Because I mean, you have to be, you also have to be game, right, to do this. These challenges are filled with unknowns, and I think that the team at SACO they thrive on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there are all kinds of companies who, if they were approached to do some of these large scale projects, they'd go, sure. And then they'd go back to the engineering team and look at each other and go, okay, now what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've had a few instances where call them competitors in certain spaces got a project and had no idea how to do it, and actually came to us.
Right.
And we worked with them. I mean, it's a small industry, so we're not. I mean, we're friendly with everybody.
Right. You mentioned earlier the idea of shape, and you're working, or you did work with FC Cincinnati on its new MLS stadium, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And could you describe that?
The working part or the project part?
Well, the stadium is kind of a curved kind of bowl thing, and the whole outside of it, it's a bit like the Bayern Munich stadium, in that you could illuminate the whole thing.
Yes, exactly. So the architect is a Populous company with who we worked with in the past, and we built a very good working relationship there. So when they took over that project, which I believe was with a different architect prior, and they came up with kind of this vision of these angled fins, where you could see through the building and so on. So they created like this very light structure, which at night, needed to be highlighted. So when they brought us on board to start taking a look at the designs and giving our ideas and stuff like that, obviously it made a lot of sense to kind of highlight the edge of that fin. The product is very much recessed inside of the fin, so it's completely invisible during the day or when it's not on. And the main, well, I mean, I guess there was several ideas there, but I mean, I guess that one of the guiding principles there is that it needs to be integrated and needed to highlight the architecture at night and kind of keep that sense of motion. Like that whole stadium has this static motion to it. So based on that, we ended up designing a solution for it, and also created the base content for the client, and it's been highly efficient for the client.
Is it actually less costly to to do it the way you're describing as opposed to doing like a full LED mesh curtain and all that, just because there's less hardware, fewer LED diodes and so on, or it does kind of balance out because this is custom engineering?
Yeah, I think maybe it balances out. There's probably overall it's maybe a little cheaper because you're integrating early, but that only happens if you're integrating early. If you're retrofitting it, it usually balances out.
Forget it.
The but the big thing that it does though is that it does become unique to that property. When you just
Mhm.
start adding video screens, and again, I'm a big fan of video screens. It's what we do for a living. But video screens, like what we refer to as traditional video screens, they have their place. But on a building, it just ends up looking like advertising if you just put it on
Yeah.
the building, right? So if you really want to enhance a building and kind of blend art and media, I think that's a highly effective way of getting your message across. Because then there's no mistaking if someone takes their Instagram shot or whatever. There's no mistaking where that is or who the client is.
Right. And you just, I'm sure, expend the time with the clients for them to understand, look, this is low resolution. This is, in a lot of cases, meant to be seen from 100
Yep.
meters away or further away. And, if you want to put pricing propositions on the screen, that's probably not going to work. But logos and things like that, that'll work well.
hmm Yep, exactly. And again, and as you approach the building, or as you approach a property, or as you're walking through a property, your experience is going to change. So that video element will now become more of a kind of a lighting, interesting, kind of ambient element. But then you'll have something else in the causeway or whatever with maybe that has a tighter pixel pitch or something to kind of just continue that whole experience as you walk through the property.
Mhm. Do you strictly work with outdoor products, or are you doing anything indoor?
Oh no, we do lots of indoor stuff.
Is that more conventional, like LED modules, cabinets, that sort of thing, or?
Yes, yes, actually, in its construction, I would say yes. In its deployment, oftentimes it's different. So we did the with this art piece, which is actually a media piece with Jenny Holzer, which sits inside of the Comcast headquarters in Philadelphia, and they're custom tiles. They're 6.32 millimeter pixel pitch, to be exact, 8 inches wide, and they needed to fit in between these wood slats on the ceiling, and the entire ceiling has video strips going right through it, right through the escalator, everything.
Oh, so
And
is this tied in with the big LED wall that's already in the lobby there?
the LED wall is in the other building. This is in their new
Ah, okay,
technology center.
gotcha,
Yeah, yeah.
gotcha. That's
Um,
that the other building's fantastic. What they've done there
oh
through the
yes,
years.
yeah, exactly. So we'll also deploy we have a project right now going on. I can't really say what it is yet, but it has a bunch of really high res stuff and these kind of monuments in a curved fashion, all
Mhm.
interactive. So high res video screen type stuff that we do a lot, and we do a lot of touring also, all tier one. So the Paul McCartneys of the world and Lady Gaga's utilize a lot of SACO equipment on their tours.
And these again would be stuff that you can tear up and take down,
Correct.
or put up and take down pretty quickly. They're lightweight, and there's a pass through so you can see in behind and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So so what we do for touring is actually our frames are called fast frames, and they're very very well fast, I guess, to set up and to
And
tear down,
rugged.
and rugged. And in touring, speed is extremely important because
Hmm.
time is money there. As you're loading in and loading out, and other trades are waiting on you. So so we came up with this system that's very fast. So I'll give you an example. When we came up with this new product called the S series, one of our very first clients was Bruno Mars, and this is obviously through some partners, some rental partners. And it was a 50-foot wide video screen by 20 feet tall, and that took 13 minutes and 13 seconds to set up. So
Wow.
from the carts to image on,
Huh.
we actually made T-shirts that says 1313.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing because somebody's going to ask, "What does that mean?" And then you're immediately pitching.
Well, exactly. And also, touring does allow us. You have a customer base there that is always hungry for the latest and newest things. So although we have more standard products there that can do kind of like their main elements. We'll build a lot of custom stuff for touring as well. So on the Taylor Swift tour, for example, we had a bunch of 12 millimeter and some 9 millimeter, but then because the thing went up like a half pipe in certain areas, we designed these custom triangular tiles to kind of fill in the gap to provide kind of like that monolithic look. And so on. So we have clients that are willing to try new things there, and then we take all of that knowledge and then we apply it to our more permanent projects afterwards.
Yeah, you're obviously pretty well known in the live events community, and I guess in architectural design, not really in the digital signage or LED display community, or at least the conventional side of that. Does that matter, or are you quite happy with just kind of stealthily building up your business?
Right. So, very good question. I would say that in the beginning, like, more on like the 2000s stuff where we're doing a lot of arenas and stadiums, like the traditional, center hungs or ribbon boards. And, we were heavily involved there. But when so many companies came out with offerings, that, there was some differentiators, of course, between what we offer and what other people offer, but the cost just kept getting driven down and down and down. And, all of a sudden, you're now operating in a commodity-based business.
Yeah,
that's not where we necessarily like to be. We're innovators at heart. So we like to focus on areas where our talents can be fully exploited. And so as soon as you introduce a little bit of complexity, and there's a lot of clients that want something complex, and complex could be something as simple as a curve, an angle, a shape, an installation, we end up finding ourselves almost alone.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I know there's a big project that you're not able to talk about yet that I'm sure maybe we'll get back together in a year or so when you're allowed to talk about it and things running. It's amazing, and unfortunately we can't talk about it at the moment.
No, but I'll be happy to speak with you when we can.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you very much for spending some time with me. That was terrific.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
That's it for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe you learned a thing or two. If you're new to 69, it's a podcast that's been around since 2016. You can click around the archive and find hundreds of conversations with smart industry people. If you're new to digital signage, you need to be reading 16.9 at 16-9.net. You'll find more than 8,000 posts by me and expert guest writers about this industry. 16.9 is not a press release republishing mill like a lot of the stuff out there. If something makes it on 16.9, that means it matters in some way to the business. Everything about 16.9 is free. Great sponsors make my work possible, and the key one here is ScreenFeed, the digital signage content store. Check out all the curated and automated content available at screenfeed.com. 16.9, the blog, and the podcast are now owned by Spectrio, which does customer engagement solutions, most of that digital signage, for all kinds of businesses. You'll find them in the Tampa area and online at Spectrio. That's spectrio.com. You'll find me working out of a sunny back room in my house located outside Halifax, Nova Scotia, on the east coast of Canada. Thanks for listening. I'm Dave Haynes.